Have you ever put your phone down and go, okay, it's time to work, but you found it really hard to stay engaged, especially getting into deep work? And 10 minutes into it, 15 minutes into it, you're picking up your phone and you're back on social media, and then you put it back down and you go, I got to get back to work. I know that you've gone through this. Well, we know that chronic social media use reduces prefrontal cortex activity. So we're not able to have those checkpoints and regulate. And actually, this is the same exact mechanism that is observed in substance abuse and addiction. So the same feeling you get to get back to your phone and away from your work is the same feeling addicts get when they need to use. We want to reduce dopamine overstimulation. This is by avoiding these high reward content threats, the TikToks or Twitters, the Instagram reels, the likes, the lighting up. We want to avoid that. And we want to replace scrolling with things that actually provide us value and give us healthy dopamine levels, like deep work, journaling. This is what I've been doing, creative hobbies. Implementing a dopamine detox, a 24-hour break from any digital stimulation, is a must. So if you're using social media for more than 2 hours a day, make sure you're locking yourself out so you're not going up to 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 hours a day. Thank you for joining this episode of Heal Thyself. To support the show, please rate, review, and subscribe. It gives us the opportunity to really expand this knowledge to people who need it most, and you can do your part by just sharing the love. Again, thank you for listening. I'm forever grateful, and I love you all. Let's get started. All right, everyone, welcome to Heal Thyself. Today, I'm going to talk about something that is affecting all of us. If you have a phone and you've been using it for a long time, you may not know how it's rewiring your brain, but we don't understand yet the implications of how it's affecting the rest of our lives. But if you use a phone, this should be the number one informed consent decision that we make. And I really want to help you all out by understanding what's happening in your body so you can choose how to move forward with your phone usage. I want you to imagine you're picking up your phone, right? You're checking the notification, but 20 minutes later, you're still scrolling. I know that happens to you, right? The posture is slouched. You have your eyes, they're kind of glazed over. You've had that feeling before. I know your partner's seen that in you. And you kind of barely remember what you've seen. Even though you've been on it for 20 minutes, you can't say what you saw 2 minutes ago. And you put your phone down, and within a minute, your hand's reaching right back for it. It's like kind of like a reflex at this point. It's a reflex that we didn't learn in medical school, right? And it's like the phone reflex. Why? And it's not just about willpower. Willpower sometimes is not enough at this point. Social media has been designed to hijack your brain one chemical at a time, even all the way to the cellular level. But today, I'm going to break down exactly what's happening in your brain and nervous system every single time you choose to scroll. And by the end of this episode, you're going to understand the science behind social media, addiction, and more importantly, how to really regain the autonomy of your brain. Because it's been hijacked. And I don't say that lightly. It has been. For me, for you, for any of us using social media consistently. So let's get into this podcast, right? I want to talk about the brain on social media. The first thing we have to think about is something called the dopamine hijack. This is the dopamine reward system. Every like, every comment is triggering a dopaminergic reward trigger in your brain. It's lighting up. And dopamine isn't just a pleasure molecule. It's motivation. It's seeking motivation. It's seeking pleasure. And social media platforms actually know this, of course, and they use this reward like schedules, right? It's like a slot machine when you go to Vegas. You see a bunch of old people, right? Pushing down a slot machine is ding, 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 ding. It keeps you hooked, right? And it's rewarding you sometimes, but sometimes it's not. But we're looking for that reward. And that's by design. Don't get it twisted. It's by design. It has to be like that in order to keep you on. We kind of know this already. But if it's the first time you're hearing it, perk up your ears and really, really listen, right? So research is showing that these not consistent, but these intermittent bursts create this compulsive checking and scrolling behavior that has been 101 for social media addiction, designed that way. Well, there's something called a striatum in the brain, and that's implicated in habit formation. The striatum in the brain, it plays a major role in these compulsive behaviors. So over time, social media is actually shifting goal-directed behavior, which is our conscious choice, right? Like I'm going to walk to the gym and do this really fantastic workout that makes me feel really good and alive. That's goal-directed behavior. To this automatic habit loop, and that's stored in a part of the brain called the basal ganglia. This automatic habit loop is the reason why we're checking our phones without even thinking. Everyone's been guilty of this. I know it. Or like you close a social media app and then you put your phone down and you're back on it. It's the craziest thing. And the behavior is deeply ingrained in our neural circuitry, right? At this point, it's not your fault. You shouldn't even feel bad that you're doing it. It's ingrained as part of you. We can break it. I'm going to talk about it. But first, we have to understand, we have to make an informed decision. There's a role in a part of our brain called the prefrontal cortex. And this is why social media begins to reduce our willpower over time. Again, it's crazy design. Right? So the prefrontal cortex is responsible for impulse control, decision-making, focus. This is the part of the brain that when someone has experienced heavy levels of trauma in childhood in their early years, this part is overrun by the limbic system, the emotional brain. So these are the people who are very reactive. But the prefrontal cortex helps us to be reflective and actually regulate our emotional outburst. Well, this is also implicated in this chronic social media use. It reduces the prefrontal cortex activity. What that means is it makes it harder to resist distractions and actually stay engaged in deep work. Let me share something with you that has been an absolute game changer. I just had one on last night and was having a conversation with it. Is a red light mask from Bon Charge. My face was glowing red in this conversation. And I really first discovered it when I was looking for natural solutions for fine lines and wrinkles. Yes, I'm 40, I'm getting up there. And I want something that's backed by science. And I know that red light therapy is one of the major things we're missing in the beauty industry and healthy skin. And what sets this mask apart is that it's strong. A lot of these red lights, they're not strong enough to do much. You got to wear them for a really long time. This one, you don't have to. And they remove all the sleep disrupting blue and green light frequencies so you can wear it at night. And that's when I do it. Like when I'm winding down, if I have a little movie on or something, I put it on all the time. I get the bang for the buck while I'm doing two things. And it uses near infrared and red light to boost collagen production. You want to do it from the root. You can't always eat collagen and think your skin's going to be better. You want to absolutely stimulate the production of collagen, and you do it with red light. It's EMF free, it's easy to use, and it gives your skin an amazing glow. And I mean it. There are research studies on this. If you don't believe me, look at the effect of red light and collagen and overall skin, fine lines. There's peer-reviewed studies across the board. If you want to upgrade your skin, go try the Bon Charge face mask. It's a cute little red light mask. It's easy to wear, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, whatever you have. Use it every day and see how it improves. To get this face mask, visit the link in the show notes and use the code DRG. You're going to save 15% off of your order. That is DRG from Bon Charge. Have you ever put your phone down and go, okay, it's time to work, but you found it really hard to stay engaged, especially getting into deep work? And 10 minutes into it, 15 minutes into it, you're picking up your phone and you're back on social media, and then you put it back down and you go, I got to get back to work. I know that you've gone through this. Well, we know that chronic social media use reduces prefrontal cortex activity. So we're not able to have those checkpoints and regulate. And actually, this is the same exact mechanism that is observed in substance abuse and addiction. So the same feeling you get to get back to your phone and away from your work is the same feeling addicts get when they need to use. And that's why social media addiction mimics gambling, cocaine, and other drug use. So when we look into the research, a 2022 Stanford study found that people who are using heavy social media have reduced gray matter volume in their prefrontal cortex. That is similar to changes that we see in people who are addicts. MRI scans also reveal that the dopamine receptors in frequent social media use all of a sudden becomes desensitized. That means you need more stimulation for the same level of reward over time. So the using social media for an hour in the past was good enough, but now you need to use it for 4 hours. Let's get into the neurochemistry of scrolling. How is your brain and nervous system responding when we're scrolling? I haven't seen many people talk about this, and this is why I was so excited to put this together for you, is because we kind of need to know what scrolling does actually to our brain, the doom scrolling, right? So hormonally, cortisol and chronic stress are connected to doom scrolling. And doom scrolling is that endless consuming of content, oftentimes negative, fearful-based content, and it's releasing the body's primary stress hormone. We see high levels of cortisol with heavy social media use. There's an overactivation of the amygdala. Remember I mentioned the limbic system before? That is activating the fear and anxiety. What we also see in the brain of heavy social media users is the suppression of the hippocampus. This is the part of the brain that is impaired in memory and learning. How many of you have said, wow, my memory is not the same? I'm not being able to be processing as fast as I used to. It can actually be just because of your heavy social media use. It's also connected to systemic inflation. That's cortisol elevation from doom scrolling. And that's elevating your risk of chronic illness, right? Now, the attention economy, this is important to understand how these platforms are hacking your focus, your presence. In social media, these platforms are overriding your natural attention span. That's what they do. That's what they're designed for. This is the currency of social media. You're not paying for Instagram. You're not paying for Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, but you're paying with your attention, which in essence is even more powerful and valuable than monetary, right? Social media leads to reduced sustained attention. It increases distractibility. You may have identified yourself as not being focused as you were before, but this was seen in the research. A 2021 University of California Irvine study found that after digital interruption, it takes 23 minutes for the brain to fully regain focus to where it was. 23 minutes. Now imagine you keep interrupting it over and over through the day. Let's talk about neurotransmitter imbalances and things like mood disorders that come from that. Serotonin is depleted with excessive social media use. And lower serotonin, we know, is linked to depression. We know it's linked to emotional instability. But there's also other neurotransmitters, one of them being GABA. And because GABA is reduced, it leads to hyperactivity and restlessness in the body. A lot of people feel like that internal buzzing. Oftentimes, we don't feel calm or grounded as we used to. It's because GABA is all out of whack. Oxytocin, big one. This is disrupted. Social media creates this false sense of connection, right? It's not real. There's nothing that compares to real life connection. We see it in the brain, but oxytocin levels are disrupted. So this is making it really hard for us to have genuine human bonding. This is a major issue, guys. Really pay attention to this. These neurotransmitters are everything. They're everything for connection, which is everything for health. They're everything for feeling good in your body. And if there's something that we're being exposed to every single day, it could be that social media is the biggest toxin you're exposed to. If you're worried about mold and chemicals in your food and chemicals in your products, but not worrying about the most disruptive chemical of all, and it's social media usage. 2023 Harvard study found that chronic social media exposure actually rewires circuits linked to the emotional regulation parts of our brain, and thus it's leading to higher rates of anxiety, higher rates of depression. Again, University of Amsterdam, another study found that short form content like TikTok, Reels actually decreases our working memory and focus. I'll attest to this. My job is to be on Instagram. My job is to scroll through TikTok and find videos to share with all of you. It's where I work. And I notice I have great long-term memory. I remember everything, details. But my short-term memory has been really affected. And sometimes it's worrisome. It's sometimes I can't remember what I did 5 minutes ago or the things that I was talking about. And I'm worried about all these things that are happening, maybe mold related or age related. But the truth is, it wasn't until I really started thinking about this, how excessive is the social media usage? How excessive is the scrolling that it's affecting my memory? And listen, remember, it's dopamine. Right? Initially, that's the big one. So 1 hour might not feel the same. And now you go to 2, now you go to 3, now you go to 4. I'm going to give you some solutions because this wouldn't be a podcast if I didn't, but you got to be really aware of this. Share this with the people who you love. Now, social media is going to affect the nervous system and the body on a cellular level. The vagus nerve, you hear me talk about it all the time. It is the nerve of systemic regulation. You want your vagus nerve active and strong because it's bringing us back into that parasympathetic healing, rest, digest nervous system state. Now, constant social media exposure actually keeps the system in the fight or flight. Particularly, one of my theories is because we're collapsing our vision into a focused state, and the body needs to know that the environment or the horizon around us is safe, but we're taking our attention away from there. So really, quickly before we even get to the solutions. If you're staring at your phone, look up and look around for a little bit and then go back to the phone if you need to be on the phone to break that focus of nervous system fight or flight. The body doesn't know it's safe because it can't see what's around it. Now, we also see increased heart rate, reduced heart rate variability. We see weakened digestion, poor gut-brain axis communication, leading to things like depression, shallow breathing, chronic tension, all while you're using your phone. But there's also epigenetic cellular changes. Yes, it's like a blanket. It's like hormones, nervous system, brain, neurotransmitters. Oh yeah, and our cellular health. We see neuroinflammation because of those cortisol spikes, right? And the dopamine imbalances. And that's leading to inflammation in the brain fog, mood disorders. We see accelerated brain aging. Actually, we see reduced neuroplasticity. That's making it hard for the brain to adapt and learn. Your memory is poor, right? It's all being reduced. Actually, your brain function and vigor is going down. Melatonin suppression. We're not even talking the blue light. The screen exposure, especially at night, is reducing melatonin. That's not just for sleep. That's a big anti-cancer hormone. Okay. So research 2021 Nature Neuroscience study found that chronic social media overstimulation will shorten your telomeres. That's crazy. This was actually one of the scariest ones I found, right? It's funny, like we don't, in science, like, okay, the brain and the nervous system and yes, our hormones, but like when it's shortening our telomeres, the very markers for cellular aging, you mean to tell me then that chronic social media overstimulation is aging us? It's actually aging us. Poor sleep on top of that from reduced melatonin, we know that from the exposure, is linked to a 33% increase in depressive symptoms. And of course, poor sleep is going to age you anyway. And when we think about, okay, wow, that's a lot. I'm on social media. How much do I use? How little do I use? What do I do? Luckily, we can start, obviously it starts with the usage, but we can really help rewire and regain balance. So first and foremost, solutions wise, you have to prioritize dopamine fasting and digital detox. And I can take some of my own advice, right? We want to reduce dopamine overstimulation. This is by avoiding these high reward content threats, the TikToks or Twitters, the Instagram reels, the likes, the lighting up. We want to avoid that. And we want to replace scrolling with things that actually provide us value and give us healthy dopamine levels, like deep work, journaling. This is what I've been doing, creative hobbies, more art, more artistry, right? Like instead of being on my phone, I'm actually writing more, rapping more, drawing more, painting more, right? Implementing a dopamine detox, a 24-hour break from any digital stimulation, is a must. Actually, it's a must for anyone who uses social media. But if you're using it on a higher level, 3-4 hours above, you gotta be doing these dopamine fasts. You also want to strengthen the prefrontal cortex that got so weak over time by overusage over the years with actually mindful consumption. And this is a big one. And this has been really helpful for me. Setting time limits on social media is really, really important. I have a fantastic app. It's Opal app. I have no affiliation with them. And it locks me out of my social media and I can't reverse it. It is done. When it's on super lock, it is done. I am not allowed to be on social media. And I had to find a way to start implementing the things instead of scrolling that'll help me restore dopamine balance, oxytocin balance, serotonin balance. My prefrontal cortex starts healing up again, increasing my neuroplasticity, leading to better memory, leading to better focus, all the things that sort of have been ruined for long-term social media usage because I'm locked out of my phone every single night and every single morning. It's been really helpful for me to re-engage on these healthier activities like reading, like doing art, like doing deep work, like writing, all the things that are helping me restore my brain. So if you're using social media for more than 2 hours a day, make sure you're locking yourself out so you're not going up to 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 hours a day. And you got to prioritize that deep focus, right? Do the constant digital stimulation, just think, affecting your memory, affecting your hormones, creating inflammation, affecting your cells, affecting your brain in every single way, actually, the ways that we don't even know yet. We also really want to restore our nervous system and reduce that cortisol. We want to teach our body that when we look at our phones, the cortisol doesn't immediately need to go up. Now, blue light blockers is going to be major. I use the yellow ones. And if you use blue light blockers, fantastic. There is a spectrum. They're not all created equal. You don't want to get really cheap ones on Amazon. Just send me a DM and I'll give you my favorite ones. But blue light blockers won't necessarily restore the dopamine because we're still engaging in scrolling. We're still engaging in reward systems, likes, comments. That's still happening whether or not we're protecting ourselves from blue light. What blue light blocking is doing is reducing that cortisol, thus reducing that inflammation, thus helping restore the brain. So if you use any screens, especially for prolonged amount of time, I don't even care if it's social media. If you're using screens, get yourself blue light blockers. You can get the yellow ones. They work. I gifted them this Christmas to somebody because it's really, really essential. But you also want to work on your vagus nerve, right? Because remember, I mentioned the vagus nerve is deeply affected. You're in sympathetic fight or flight. Imagine being that all day. Deep breathing. You could do the 4-7-8 method. Just go to YouTube, check that out. You can do mindful meditation, somatic meditations. You can do hot shower for 3 minutes, go to cold for 30 seconds. Do that 3 times, end in cold. You can hum, you can chant, exercise, obviously walking. You really, really, really want to restore that vagus nerve. One of the more important things, it's crazy to say this, increase real life oxytocin. The oxytocin is depleted through social media. It is restored and nurtured with in-person meetings. So we're kind of moving towards that, moving away from Zoom meetings and actually meeting more, at least in my expertise in my world here, right? Like we're doing more in-person meetings, but instead of calling someone on the weekend, have them meet with you for coffee, meet with you for lunch, go on a walk together, right? Instead of online shopping and just like calling it a day, ask your partner to go with you, go together, have an experience, ask your friend to go with you, have an experience. This is so helpful at restoring those receptors for oxytocin that kind of get burnt out by using so much social media. More hugs, more community building. Continuing on the solutions, improve your sleep and cellular recovery. Of course, avoiding screens minimum 1 hour before bed. Have those red light blockers on. Exposing yourself to morning sunlight is going to be really important for your circadian rhythm. Go outside. The best is to see the sunset. And then the best is to being exposed to an hour after the sun. It's a different set of benefits. When you see the sunset, it's going to help really get you sleeping well and restoring your circadian rhythm. But you also want to be helping cortisol during the day. So, you're seeing sunset, walk back home, the sun is rising, get a little more sun, get midday sun for vitamin D. All the sun is going to be so helpful at restoring your levels and balance of your sleep hormones and circadian rhythm. I'm going to give you a final research insight. A 2022 MIT study found that reducing social media use by 30 minutes per day led to a 35% improvement in mood, lower stress, and higher life satisfaction. It is a major opportunistic cost. How much is social media and phone usage affecting us? There's going to be more conversations about this, but I really hope that this one really awakened you to many things, because it is, you may have not wanted to hear it, but I really, really hope that it's giving you an informed consent on doing what you want to do. You want to really own your attention. You want to own your life. Yeah, social media is a tool. Yeah, you can learn a lot. Yeah, my platform's on it. And you want to do it at a controlled pace. You want to feel empowered, but don't hijack your brain chemistry, right? The real key is like, how can I understand how it affects me, my family, my children, my loved ones, right? And actually engaging with it intentionally, not just mindlessly. And again, I'm guilty of it too. But I really, the Opal app or any of these like really strict social media blocking apps have been really helpful. Because if you're blocked, you're blocked, right? And just know your attention is actually more important than money, right? So protect it. You can do yourself a brain reset challenge, right? You can block yourself out of social media, at least one social media app for a day, and see how that helps. Maybe 2 the next day, right? Can you go a day without scrolling? Can you actually forego scrolling for a deep conversation? I promise you on my medical license that you are going to feel better if you choose the latter. Start connecting with people, all right? So I really hope this episode helped you. It was really exciting for me to put this out here. I put a lot of research into this, and I really hope that it helped. All the love. Share this with anyone who's on their phone way too much. Thank you so much for rating, reviewing, and subscribing. Heal thyself. I'll see you next week. Bye.